Okay, hythloday, you have a 10-minute video, so this might be long, but I am going to go through your video and play it. Do a Gary on your video.
Hey Pyro.
Okay,
Oh gosh.
golly.
Holy. Um. Okay. Let's let me see by recapping how confused I am. You're trying to say that it's a good idea to have a planned sub-economy for retirees,
Yes.
and I'm criticising that plan.
Okay, well, this is a nitpicky style, so this is what I'm going to do. I don't think you're actually you're criticizing it in a general way, but I think the terms we're using are still not correlated enough that we're really discussing the same thing. So what you're criticizing is a little different from what I'm proposing. What I'm forced to defend is therefore different again, and so on.
Because I am making the observation um, that you're trying to plan a huge economy. You're trying to play down the size of it, saying, "Oh, we've got the military that we do planning," and I
Okay, look, we already plan their economy. We give them the money. We know how huge it is. It's the total sum of all of our federal pension or Social Security, state pension. We call it Social Security here. We know the size of that economy, right? The size of the Social Security market is the sum total of Social Security benefits to all the people receiving benefits. Okay. So really, we're already responsible for the full sustenance. And what are they buying? The kind of commodities that you need to survive, like I mentioned. You know, food, water, clothes, blankets, reasonable, furniture like a bed. So we're already doing that. I'm just saying let's distribute how we spend this money, and instead of giving increases, or instead of being limited only to increases on the payment side, we also get into the supply side. Because if we subsidize a particular supply because the price is getting out of hand, then at least we're doing a focused control on a particular product, not just giving more money that might not, a certain percentage of which won't be even spent on that product.
how what is your numbers? What are the demographics?
For example, if you subsidize oil, gas purchase for old people, let's say. I'm not sure if you would. Maybe that's why I believe in public transportation. You could say, well, we're providing public transportation. But let's say you subsidize something like that. If the price of oil is skyrocketing and all you can do is raise the Social Security benefits, compensate for that, part of the problem is there are people that don't need the gasoline. They live in a city, they walk down to the shop, and so on and so forth. Those people are going to get the increase as well, and they're going to spend it just on whatever they want as a windfall. And you're not trying to give them a windfall, you're trying to compensate for the problem in that price. If you were selling gas subsidized, for example, elderly people have a gas card that they can buy gas at gas stations and the government makes up the difference, or they go to government gas stations, or however you want to do that, but you're willing to subsidize the price to keep it fixed for people retired on a fixed economy, then a fixed income, then all the money you spend on that subsidy was because of the price of gasoline, right? Instead of the increase, which would be spent elsewhere as well.
The populations in the Western world are aging. Yeah? What goods are you trying to?
See, there's a lot of them. So they're already in the Social Security system, right? The database is done. A lot of the work of this infrastructure is done.
Provide.
And you're just waving your hands and saying, oh, but it's so complex, it's so complex. And yet, I'm just trying to get you to admit, you're trying to tackle the complexity as well. We're not in the state of nature. We're not chimpanzees, right? We're not in the state of nature. We're in a system that was constructed by the people that were boss of my ancestors.
On a planned basis for these individuals. And I believe it's huge what you
It is huge.
what you're trying.
I'm not saying it's not huge. You're saying it's incomprehensible.
We're not talking about just identifying one or two individual items like, oh, let's stabilize the price of pens.
Yes, you're right. I'm not doing that.
You're
It's
talking
just
about
an example
pretty
of a pen.
much everything, really, as far as I can see. If you're talking about one or two.
Okay, I'm not talking about everything. I'm not talking about 4-star hotels. I'm not talking about second cars. I'm not talking about gas guzzler cars. I'm talking about basic transportation. Possibly that means a basic vehicle, but also possibly it means adequate public transportation. Okay, I'm talking the necessities of life with a reasonable amount of understanding that, you're retired. Some of those necessities involve leisure. So, for example, a public park is a place that an old person could go and get some sort of reasonable leisure from, a very cost-effective way. Okay.
Items, then I can.
You could really just even ignore the leisure items. That should just come from, warm blankets and a nice city and a safe environment, but you do have to end up thinking about that. You can't just be saying, well, if you're malnourished but you haven't died, that's good enough. So, you go beyond that point to a point that includes, some leisure, senior centers with gyms and or just a public gym or that they can go to, whatever the solution's going to be. Primarily, we're talking about food, clothes, shelter.
I can't see why you would bother. If you're not planning, major provisions, then why would you bother? So you're talking about all major foodstuffs, all major products and resources in life, I suppose I can see. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to have to itemize this, and then let's, I guess, what's your limitations on this? This is the impression I have gained from you. So, that in itself seems to add weight to my...
The limitations are, well, I just described them in general. How do you find these things that are necessary for life? Well, I mean, to some degree, you can even put bureaucrats or scientists together. What does it really take to survive? Make sure there's some mental health experts involved. In terms of my approach, where do we look at, without that? I look to what has been commoditized. Once something is commoditized, then it is changed and become a part of our basic structure of life. That's always a judgment call where that happens. Obviously, some things have been commoditized for a long time. So when something gets standardized to the point that you don't need a lot of evolution and innovation in it. Okay, so iPods have not reached that point, and I'm not sure they ever will. Perhaps there's some things that never will, like luxury versions of things that are commoditized in some sense. A vehicle, is it commoditized? I don't know. It's hard. In the U.S., you really need one. The price is definitely not reacting to commodity. It's not just utilitarian like there is in food, just, nothing fancy, just get me something that does the basic job. But, you have things like phone. Used to be a luxury. Okay, but after it got ubiquitous enough, we realized, geez, this is a great way to call for an ambulance. Well, old people need to have a phone, and, in California at least, other states, there's programs to make sure that people can have a cheap phone. So there's a universal access so that we can use it as a piece of infrastructure. Let's see if I'm out of time yet. Yeah. Okay, so we will continue in a second.